Ladies and gentlemen, it is always a great pleasure to be here at Hong Lim Park to address the many concerned Singaporeans who come here to listen to the great issues of the day. And can I thank Kwan Yu King again for being a magnificent MC. Now, when I organized this event, I asked myself, what is the one question that is on the mind of all Singaporeans today? And I think I have answered that with this theme. Where is the accountability in Singapore? Think back. Right after GE15, we had the Hep C scandal. We have had so many scandals since then. And this year, we of course had the tragic death of Aloysius Pang in January. But before his death, there were other deaths of our NSmen during training. Now, the lineup of speakers today, starting from Prabhu, Simon, Sivakumar, Brad, all of them have given you many accounts of where there is lack of accountability. I want to address a more theoretical aspect of accountability. And what is accountability at the end of the day? I think if you want one phrase to summarize it, it is a phrase that was popularized by an American president, Harry Truman. The buck stops here. It means you do not pass the blame to others. It means you do not set up countless number of committees of inquiry, finding fault, but the fault never ends with the head. You know, I say this. The PAP have forgotten what one of their own said when he castigated the WP in Parliament some years ago. You will remember this person. He said in Japan, the CEO and the board of directors will call a press conference, take a deep bow, and sometimes even commit harakiri. Do you ever see that in Singapore? I tell you, accountability in Singapore, public accountability in Singapore ended the day Goh Chok Tong said in 2015, shortly before the general elections, we are our own checks. Don't fall for the seductive lie that there must be checks and balances. Well, Goh Chok Tong is no sage, all right? Because look at our country 4 years on. You have no accountability. Anytime something happens, the blame is passed on. Also, the latest one, 808,000 identities of blood donors were disclosed for 9 weeks. And where does the blame go? Oh, it was a vendor who put it up. A vendor. Let me ask you this. Why was Gan Kim Yong not responsible enough to set down guidelines, set up the framework to make sure that this thing did not happen? And it has happened once too often. For many of you who are in the shipping industry, and you know, I have practiced shipping law for the better part of my adult life, you will have heard about the ISM code, all right? It's a safety code that came into force almost 2 decades ago. And before then, ship owners like to pass the buck. Whenever anything happened, they'll say, oh, it's not my fault. It's a fault of my employee, all right? And they'll find fault with that employee. And that is very critical in shipping law because you want to break limitation, okay? So when the ISM code came in, an international code, it basically meant that ship owners were going to be always personally liable for any wrongdoing because their employees, they could not hide behind what was known as the corporate entity anymore. They were the alter egos of the company. And it must be like that in our public service. Gan Kim Yong cannot forever say that he's not responsible for this data breach, another data breach. Under his watch, there have been 3 data breaches. The very serious one that happened last year that involved 1.5 million people. The HIV leak that was disclosed only this year, but was known much earlier. And what we learned yesterday about the unlawful disclosure of the identities of the blood donors. And isn't it sad, my friends, that we now live in a country where most of us don't think that there is accountability in government. And how different is that from our private life? You know, every day, a private individual has to be accountable for his or her own actions. If you are a Grab driver, you are accountable because your customers will rate you. You give them poor service, very soon the star ratings will drop. And if you continue to give them bad service, after a while, nobody is going to hire you. The same thing for our students. They are held accountable by their grades, by their attendances, by the merits and the awards they are given. And you know, these expensively paid ministers of ours, they like to benchmark themselves to the top 1% earners in society, to the top CEOs. You know, if you are the CEO of a listed company and you perform badly, you are soon going to get sacked. But they like that analogy, but they never get sacked. Yes, they will just say sorry. A public listed company, the CEO will never just be able to say sorry and get away with it. And this is a society we live in today. But how? How did we allow this situation to come about? I suggest it has come about because of 3 factors. 3 factors. 1, because for too many years, my friends, we have allowed the PAP free range and given them a supermajority in Parliament. And that's why they don't see the need to check themselves. And you know what? It has come to a ridiculous situation where even the Speaker of Parliament becomes their spokesperson. You know, I was astounded last week when Tan Chuan Jin rounded up the debate on the budget. All right? And he was saying that what a fantastic job the government was doing on the budget. It wasn't an election budget. All right? And this is how Singapore has progressed through the years. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you again. The Speaker of Parliament is supposed to be neutral. Supposed to be neutral. You know, in England, and you can just switch on to BBC or to Sky News these days, and they show you what happens in the House of Commons. And And you see how neutral John Bercow is, all right? He will even admonish the Conservatives, his own party. He will tell the ministers off. He will send them out of the chamber. You know why? That is neutrality. You know, in England, the Speaker of Parliament, he's always given a very safe seat because when it comes to election time, he does not even campaign. He does not even campaign because he should not be taking the government's side. Yet what did we see in the Bukit Batok by-election? You saw Halimah Yacob, who is now the president, come out openly to castigate Chee Soon Juan. All right? That was how biased, if I may use that word, she was. And let's think about the consequences. What if Chee Soon Juan had won the Bukit Batok by-election, had gone into parliament? All right? The next time there is a debate going on, and she cuts off Chee Soon Juan and says, you are not allowed to ask that question. Does that not give the perception of biasness? Perception, accountability has everything to do with perception. And I tell you, the second reason why accountability is in such a poor state in our public life today, it is because we have a useless president. Most people think that the president's only role is to hold the second key to the reserves. That is not correct. Besides being a guardian of the reserves, she is supposed to be a guardian of the integrity of the public service. She can, at any time, call a commission of inquiry under the Commissions of Inquiry Act to investigate into various aspects of public life. And the integrity of the public service is foremost and always one of them. Now, I am suggesting to her, if she is doing her job properly, she would not have allowed the new Auditor General, who is the wife of a senior minister of state, to be appointed. Ridiculous. It was ridiculous listening to Chan Chun Sing in Parliament, trying to justify. All right? Is it any wonder why 96% of the public who took part in the poll conducted by the online citizen, Terry Su, who always does an amazing job, thought that it was a conflict of interest? Hey, you don't need to be a rocket scientist, you don't need to be a genius to know that that is a conflict of interest situation. And I want to use the phraseology of Goh Chok Tong again, all right? We don't need sophistry here, all right? We don't need to be sophisticated. Even a child, I am sure, even a secondary school kid, knows that that is a conflict of interest situation. And the third reason why accountability, public accountability, is almost non-existent in our country is because we don't have a free press. We do not have the fourth estate, as the Americans call it. Our state media are nothing more than propaganda broadsheets. for the PAP. You know, when relevant things come out, and of course, I look out for these things because these days I'm representing Leong Zi-hian in the defamation case, all right? When anything major advantages happens to the case for Lee Hsien Loong, you can bet that they will blare the news. But when the news came out that we were countersuing, or Leong Zi-hian was countersuing the Prime Minister, it was hidden away on page B9 of the home section. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, don't be concerned about the result, the court decision that came out earlier this week. This case has a long, long way to go. But, ladies and gentlemen, I echo what Zi-hian said earlier. The biggest problem in our society today is the lack of accountability. That is the root of all problems. Why? Because public leadership means trusteeship. You must have the trust of the people when you hold public office. And if there is no accountability, trust in the government institutions diminish. And isn't it true? Isn't it true? The PAP used their supermajority in Parliament to ram through constitutional amendments. They affected changes in the way the last president was elected. And what has happened to the presidency today? It has become a joke, a laughingstock. Thank you. It has led to widespread cynicism about the whole institution. It has led to snide remarks by the public. I can give you a taste of those remarks, where people say, yes, under the PAP, 4 becomes 5. Indian becomes Malay. You are just diminishing. You are diminishing the office of the presidency. That is supposed to be the symbol of our statehood. Why? Because you need to win. Because you need to prevent someone from becoming president who would hold you accountable on a range of issues, such as CPF, the state of the reserves, and many other things. So, what is the solution? The solution is, ladies and gentlemen, we have to make sure that in this coming general elections this year, we effect change. Yes, it is time we need a new government. And let me say this. I am very optimistic about the chances of the opposition in this coming general elections. I tell you, on election night this year, many Singaporeans are going to be so shocked at the result, they are going to be falling off their chairs. Because no one is picking up the murmurings of the silent majority. People have had enough. And we must all play our part. All of us who want change, we must be the change. We must every day from now till the elections, be persuading our friends, our family members. And we do that nonstop. And on election day this year, we are going to see amazing changes brought to our country. And we are going to build a better nation for our next generation than the one we now inhabit. And I think that is the duty of every Singaporean, to leave the next generation with a better country than what we have now. Thank you very much. Thank you.